Welcome back to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. Now, as Bitcoin prepares to likely make some record moves into 100,000 or more territory in the next few months, what else is on my mind? Well, new technologies that have come about because of blockchain, but that can take the world into a better place, that are more efficient, and there's new ways to not only make money, but bring about change, particularly change and improvements in medical technology. Soon, there is a new and interesting way the blockchain can possibly make you money that you never likely thought about. What if you could make money from your genome? I know, right? We are going to bring you the team that's doing something revolutionary with gene research and the blockchain that shows you how big blockchain is in transforming the world and bringing about new efficiencies, combined with privacy that just wasn't possible prior to blockchain. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain, and if you like money and crypto you're looking for a real investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking the video and subscribing with the all notifications button on. Special note, you know this, but I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a crypto investor myself, sharing with you how I think about crypto and the crypto market. All right, so I want to welcome our special guests. We have Sean and Aldo here, and they're joining us to talk about their project and what their project is doing in an amazing way that the internet and crypto can make money. Now, we can see Aldo. Sean is joining us by voice only, so you won't be able to see him, but he's joining us from the Genome's intern account, which I guess is a big deal in crypto, where like Binance has their intern account, but that doesn't really mean a Binance intern is there. It's usually someone more important. So Sean and Aldo, thank you for joining us. Aldo is the CEO. So what you've been doing is amazing, and I hope I can ask some good questions so that you can lay it out well to the audience, because where crypto is going and what you're doing with it is incredible. I am excited about the possibilities for medical advancement that could come out through what you're doing. So would you share with the audience a little bit about what you're doing with genomes and how that couples so well with the blockchain?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to, Rain. Thank you so much for having us on your program, by the way. It's a great honor, and thank you for your compliments. I hope we can live up to the expectation. So yeah, I mean, we started this adventure back in 2018. So I co-founded Genomes.io together with Mark, who sadly couldn't be with us today, Mark Hannell, who's a stem cell biologist who has a PhD from Imperial and previously also a geneticist. And he knows a lot about genomic data and kind of the journey of genomic data and all the things that could happen. And when we started the company, I think the idea came to us, I think even 4 years before we even started the company. We were talking about with science and technology so rapidly evolving, what that would mean for data, our data in general, and what part of our data are basically most private to us. We very quickly we came to the conclusion, like, listen, in our lifetime, you're going to have multiple home addresses, you're going to have multiple phone numbers. You're not going to have many, but you're going to have a few in your lifetime. But you're only going to have one genomic sequence. There's only one DNA set that basically is you. And there's no other way. Once that is identified, that is you. And in your lifetime, that is never going to change. And we saw, like, listen, if people get their hands on this, then that can unlock a lot of information to who you are. And you know, if you're talking from a medical standpoint, you can look at susceptibility for specific diseases, whether you have any hereditary diseases, whether you're a carrier of something that you will pass on to maybe the next generation. So that is, of course, the medical element. But also there are already kind of lots of companies in the business, companies that we would like to call direct-to-consumer genetic companies, such as 23andMe and Ancestry.com. I'm sure you've heard of them, who give you something called ancestry reports, which is an insight into, well, as the name says, who your ancestors were and where they came from, and it's a gadget, if you will, to find out that you have great grandparents who came from Ireland, so to say. So there's a lot of data in there. Now we know that we're just on the tip of the iceberg here. So what we can read in our genetic data today is just the very beginning of what we will be able to read in, say, 5 years' time. So, and what our idea was basically, well, if this is evolving so quickly, and if people get their hands on this, then people might start doing the wrong things with that data. Well, because once your genomic data is kind of, in the hands of the wrong organization or wrong people, they might not do things to your advantage, so to say. So what can we bring in to protect yourself and to protect other people who basically have the same aim to lock their genomic data? So back in 2014, when the initial idea came, we were talking very severe, heavy encryptography that was only done at MIT and kind of, massive vaults and was costing people a lot of bandwidth, and it was impossible to get it to the mainstream world, to get it on the cloud or anything like that. And when blockchain basically was introduced and became more mainstream, we saw basically that as an avenue to say, okay, how can we combine this with this cryptography of genomic data? So that offered an opening to us and gave us the idea to start Genomes.io. That's a long introduction. As you notice, I can go on and on, but I'll pause here shortly, hoping that, that it unlocks new questions.
Thank you for sharing that overview. A lot of my audience are crypto investors, and they're here in crypto space because they realize this technology is changing the world, and they're also here for improving their financial futures. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, there's two reasons. Number one, there's some ways that they can make money with their genome while keeping their privacy, which I'll ask you about. Secondly, there is a token that's launching related to the project in like a week, and so I'll ask you some questions about that, if that's okay. But let's get into why it's important, like what's going on here. And you touched on it in your overview. Is one of the things that we've learned through Google and through Facebook and other things is they made us this promise that, hey, you can use this platform for free. And we're like, great, it's free. And we'll sell you ads, which is like, okay, yeah, I don't care if you put ads on there. What they didn't tell us is we're going to sell your data to everyone we can, whether you want to or not. And we found that out later and learned that later. And that's one of the big reasons that we like this decentralized movement, is that some of these competitors are coming out. It's like, no, you're going to own your data, and you'll be able to release it to those that you want to, and those who you don't want to, you don't have to release it to. So that we don't have to trust that our data is not going to be released. And as we were talking beforehand, and in the research that I did on your project, I was like, okay, a trustless system here. That because we're learning the value of privacy, especially when you're talking about your genome sequence. Because like you said, that going into the wrong hands. Imagine if your insurance carrier found out you had a higher predisposition towards diabetes, and you don't even have it now, and you may never have it, but they see that you have a higher predisposition. You don't want them to have that data. All of a sudden they give you a higher premium. So being able to control this data and release it to who you want and restrict it from who you don't is critical. And you're setting up exactly that system, because some of the centralized systems that are out there, they're already selling your genomic data without you asking them to, because they make a lot of money on that. So thank you for joining us, so you could tell the viewers a little bit what you're bringing to the table and how you're using blockchain to bring about some changes where that people can control their privacy while still allowing them the opportunity to make money on it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
100%.
Sorry, go ahead.
You take it, Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Ray, you brought up a really good point about like Google and Facebook, and basically, I think we've heard the term that if the product is free, you are the product, basically. And I think I want to like express one scenario. So I heard this on 60 Minutes maybe a few weeks ago, but the author of the book *Sapiens* said something very very alarming. He said that some of these platforms like Google and Facebook and Instagram, they can observe your outside, your interactions with their platform, and from just those interactions, they actually know more about you than you know about yourself. So for example, he said that someone like Facebook can determine your sexual orientation even before maybe you can. And that's terrifying, but here, like, that's only when you're interacting with their platform. Imagine if Facebook or Meta said, "Hey, guys, give us your genomic data too." And then you can have a really bad scenario if they're like, "Oh, well, okay, well, let's guys, we're running, we want to increase our revenue for this quarter. So let's find ways to do it." And they'll say, "Okay, well, maybe find everyone whose genomes we have that are slightly predisposed to depression, right? Find every one of them, and then let's curate depressive content on the platform on Facebook and Instagram for them, right? So they'll get more and more depressed. And then after that, all the people who are paying us ad money for the depression antidepressant drug, let's curate the drug in front of that. So we'll get them depressed, and then we'll sell them the drug, and then we'll make the money all the way through." And I think like that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think this could get really, really scary and dystopian very quickly. And I think that's why, a project like this, where it's not owned by VCs and 23andMe and like Ancestry and like Blackstone, right? They spent billions of dollars for Ancestry's genomic data. And the question is, why would Blackstone, the biggest private equity company in the world, be so interested in where your grandfather is from, right? Like that's so odd. So I think it, it as the world kind of the light bulb goes off and we transition to Web3, we need some of these platforms, these decentralized platforms that are owned by the community, owned by DAOs, owned by the people who use them, instead of VCs and the guys on Wall Street. Yeah,
Yeah, we all trust the guys from Wall Street as far as we can throw them. And generally, what's funny is I'm a free market person. I love free markets. But that doesn't mean I trust businesses. What I love about the free market is in a truly free market economy with competition, you can end your relationships with them instantly. But some of these players have gotten so big with little competition that they're acting like monopolies, and monopolies break the free markets. So what
yes.
you're setting up here is good. I don't know why Blackstone wanted the genomic data of everybody from Ancestry.com, but I believe it's probably for their purposes rather than ours. And
Well,
so this is
yeah,
why these trustless systems are so attractive to me.
and if you look at the recent revenue history of a company like 23andMe, in 2018, they sold over 5 million exomes. So that is basically the DNA data of 5 million of people who bought the ancestry report at 23andMe to GlaxoSmithKline for the amount of $300 million, right? So that's $60 for each individual that basically was made on the data of 23 the database of 23andMe. That's just one example. So these deals are highly lucrative, and we're also talking exomes here, which are is a lighter form of sequencing, so to say. So not a clinical grade, not something that we call whole genomic sequencing, which is what we are doing. So you can imagine that the data, the information that can be unlocked from that data by the pharmaceutical industry and by research organizations is enormous. I just want to recap or just go shortly back to what Sean said before about Facebook and Instagram and the way they use data, and also where I like your point, Rain, about the trustless system. and where decentralization makes a lot of sense here, because I don't necessarily think that they're all demons and devils, and they, whatever they can use your data for, they will use it at this moment in time. I think people started with a certain intention, but then they see that the data does something for them, and they try to protect that. But as the free market works, as you say, these companies also get taken over by others, and then the data basically switches hands, and it's all in a central database, right? So because it is packaged in that way, and because it changes hands many times, there's no guarantee for anyone as to what will happen with the data and what it will be used for, which is a very scary notion. So we don't necessarily want to say from the outset, like, okay, this is pure evil and it needs to stop, but we just want to say centralizing DNA data is a dangerous thing, because you never know
who's going to end up with it.
Correct.
Yeah, some corporation might then buy them out for trillions of dollars. Now they have complete access to it, and though the founders might have had the best of intentions, it's no longer under their control. And so
Correct.
That's why I believe in trustless systems rather than trusted systems. So I'm going to summarize really quickly my understanding. So you've lined up some partners that they can get their entire genome sequence for as cheap as possible. My understanding is this used to cost $1 billion for one genomic sequence. How many years ago was that? 10 years ago?
Yeah, that was for so that was in 21 years ago. So that was in 2000, and it was, of course, the very first genome they were sequencing, right? So that was kind of an enormous lab exercise with hundreds of people kind of being involved just to do it for the very first time. So it's not, I mean, that has never been kind of a mainstream product. Of course, it wasn't for $1 billion. But that's the very first time that ever happened. And back then it cost $1 billion. And in 21 years, it has, accelerated so tremendously that today it's kind of a consumer product for $500. So it's still expensive. But the biggest players in the market, the biggest sequencers, have already announced that in a few years they will be able to do this for under $100. And we believe that the next step is then for free, because the win for these companies is not in the sequencing, the cost of the sequencing. The win is what they can read in the data and what they can do with the data.
Yeah, and what I like about this, so to interact, and you're doing a token launch soon, but the way the platform will work is that people can pay $500 to have their genes sequenced. They can then, that data then gets locked essentially in a vault that is only accessible with their private key. And so then they can authorize people to be able to look at that data or not, and they can make money by allowing people access to that data, but they get to pick and choose. And you were explaining to me how basically this works. Like some company comes and's like, we want males in this demographic, this population, we want to look at as much data, and then essentially the user would get a request. Oh yeah, I want to approve that, and this is how much essentially it would pay, and then they could approve that, and if they approve it, then they get that much money. And the researchers are happy, and it's kind of, they get access to the data for that research, but only for that research, right?
Correct. Yep. So the you as the vault owner, as the owner of the genetic data, you can open the vault, and when you open it, you can read your genomic sequence in its entirety, and you are the only person who can do that. What we can do is we can work query per query. So we receive via an API a request from a pharmaceutical organization in which they basically, let's say, describe a certain demography. So people in Northern America, 35 to 44 years old, males. That's what they're looking for. So we kind of, have your profile, kind of your generic data, and on the basis of your generic data, we could say, hey, you fit that profile. So we would send you a notification and basically say, hey, this pharmaceutical organization or research organization is interested to query your genome on this specific level. Let's say to check whether you're susceptible for heart disease. And then basically we send you a notification, a question, if you will, and you can then answer yes or no. We make it very digestible for you. We show you what the reward is. And sometimes it might be that there's no reward, because we also want to work, for instance, with rare disease charities or organizations who basically have the scientific progress at heart, and not all of them have kind of commercial gain, but they do have scientific or medical progress. So we also want to give them an opportunity and at least ask you. In return, we would always ask transparency and accountability for what they do. So it's the financial reward, most definitely in one end, but it's also, closing the loop and giving back to people what you are using their data for, which is currently you have no idea. You have no idea what people do with your genomic sequence after you basically have waive the rights for them to use it. Once you've parted with saliva in a tube and have sent it to the laboratory of 23andMe, you basically don't know what will further happen with your data.
Yeah, my wife paid to have that done, and so Ancestry.com is running around with all her data. We did find out that she's, of course, we knew German ancestry, but Cherokee, and I think just like there's a country song like half Cherokee and Chippewa or whatever, she actually has both those. Funny enough, but so now I guess Blackstone owns that data, and who knows what they're going to do with it. Of course, they only sequenced a little bit of the genome, not the full genome, and apparently that was worth billions of dollars to them. And I don't remember any disclosures when she submitted that, so she could find out more about her ancestry, to where that might be sold to other people for purposes she may not agree with. But we're finding out how important these trusted systems are. Now, you have a token launching in like a week. Could you tell us more about the use case of the token and how that works?
Sean, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So basically, the token, it's the gene token. So it's going to be launching on Sushi's Miso on November 16th, in a couple of days. And within the Genome's DAO, Genome's IO platform, right, where researchers and people who have their genomes in our vaults, it's kind of like that's the native currency of that economy. So, for example, if you went to Japan, if you're from the US, you went to Japan and you tried to pay with US dollars, they'd be like, no, you have to use yen. And the same thing here. Within our platform, if researchers want to open up your vault, they will be paying you in Genome. And if you want to immediately swap that genome for dollars or swap it for whatever, you can. But the native currency within our ecosystem is the gene token. And then additionally, we have a genome governance token, which obviously gives you governance over the DAO, treasury, things like that. And then another aspect is that there's a deflationary aspect to the gene token. So after a certain number of kits are sold, we burn some of the token, right, to make it more valuable. And then we also want to incentivize pharma companies or research organizations to buy some of the gene tokens earlier before they start, getting more expensive due to inflation. So we might go to, maybe Pfizer or something like that and say, hey, right now the gene tokens are. We're building up our DNA database. We're getting more people into the vaults on our platform. Right now, the tokens are not super expensive, but as we get more people, they get more expensive because we burn some of the tokens as we get more genomes into the vaults.
That makes good sense. So in about a week, it'll be on SushiSwap.
Yep.
And do you have an idea of the initial market cap, what that would be at?
I don't know off the top of my head. No.
That's all right. Once it launches, it'll change anyway, and we'll have to evaluate then what the price is. Because most of my audience were investors, and we like to buy at a good price versus paying a lot.
Yeah. So we will provide. It's 30% of our tokens will be launched, and it will be done through a crowd sale. So it's not a Dutch auction in that sense that the volume that we sell will be at IDO price.
Okay, perfect. That's great. I appreciate you joining me. As I was researching on the company, I was like, this is unique and this is awesome and kind of long-term vision, because I can see how your company and your project can do incredible things over the coming years, but this isn't like, so what my thought is over the coming years is DNA sequencing will become cheaper and cheaper, and more people will do it, as well as researchers will get a value of how to utilize the value from there. So there's more and more money behind getting your, like, letting science use your genome. Because as much as I don't trust some businesses, I trust lots of businesses. It just depends on what incentives are. What I trust is proper incentives. It's amazing how when incentives are aligned, behavior is generally good. When incentives are misaligned, it's not. That's why I like these trustless systems, where you don't have to, you get to unlock the data to who you want. They don't now own your data, and then you have to trust that they're not going to use it bad. I like to trust but verify. So thank you for joining us and explaining this more, and we will keep an eye on your project, because this is extremely intriguing. And I think generally that the crypto is bringing efficiencies to DeFi, to video gaming, and also collectibles. But then what's amazing is these other areas that I would have never even thought about is bringing these trustless systems that brings greater efficiencies over the centralized system, like exactly what you're doing with genomes, and that we can make some passive income off of lending our genome out for scientific research. I like that. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Even if you don't work with genomes.io, we just want everyone to be aware that there's value to your DNA data and value to your genomic data. So just be careful, which DNA products you buy, and carefully read what their terms are before you just go ahead and waive it, because you never know how it's going to backfire or how it's going to come back to you.
Yeah. That's been heavy on our mind, right, about the centralized versus decentralized side of things, and that these private companies don't always use our data well. So thank you in the audience for joining us. If you're ready to level up your crypto game, join us. Subscribe to the Rainmaker, the Crypto Rain channel, and join the Rainmaker family by hitting that all notifications button and watching our videos. We appreciate the support. We also appreciate those who have joined our Patreon, as well as there's a Telegram link below for our Telegram chat, and it's very good. It's sometime in the near future we will be closing that off, and it will become a private group. Right now it's still public and you can join for free. So if you're interested in that, there's some very sharp people in there, as well as I'm frequently in there. For the most access, if you join our Patreon, that gives you access to our Discord. So for those of you who want to speak to me, that's a great way to reach me frequently. So thank you all for joining us. I've got this wrap for all you Rainmakers that just reinforce the principles that we use to invest in crypto that has made us a lot of money over the past 4 years. Thanks.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you're good. Was taught to buy when it was boring, like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and a feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge to gain show. Sticking at this run, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. In 2 years time, the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. The goal with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.